topic before us. It has also a subtitle, which is also very interesting. I have four very, very eminent panel members with me today, and I hope to engage them in a discussion that all of you will find useful. Starting with you, Madan, I thought I'll just get some perspective from you. A lot of these companies today, when they're looking at doing something for accelerating social change or social development, are trying to see how they can bring in technology to help in achieving those goals. What is your perspective on that?
Sure, sir. Thank you for having me on this panel. It's an honor to be with you, sir, and with everybody, all the friends of the panel. Three quick points that I want to make on this that I've been working on the last many years, and especially the last year on AI and technology. One, I think the business opportunity itself, beyond CSR, that's what you're talking about, that is emerging at the district level is tremendous. India's journey towards Viksit Bharat, whatever the dreams are, 40 trillion, 30 trillion, cannot happen and should not happen without each of the districts itself becoming a $10 to $12 billion economies, which is like the size of 6 Bhutans. And today it's already happening. Several of the districts are between 4 to 6 billion. So imagine if 40 to 50,000 crores of business is being added into our district, the possibilities to create economic and social wealth from that growth is one concept that I want to present to say that the real growth happens at the district and businesses and CSR must focus there. Two, that finally it's about the happiness and the social development of that. Well, the economic growth is one part, and I argue that the conceptualization of AI or Gen AI is AI at the center and people around it. We should flip it and say, I call it the Jan AI rather than Gen AI, that it should be people at the center and AI around it. And the question we must ask is, how can businesses and the Samaj Sarkar Bazaar, the three actors, use AI or tools like that for the benefit of humankind? And how do we shape technologies that way? And therefore, the third construct that comes is the demographic dividend that we have. We've just heard people, various conversations around youth and how do we really leverage youth to be harbingers of change. The work that we do at the Hedela Foundation, we see that there is immense potential. They are ready to think like and behave like entrepreneurs, and the next step from there is to be change makers. How do we use AI as a force for good to harness that power of youth? So if you put all of this together, businesses can look at doing good, feeling good, and making good money if we really bring four forces together: aspirations of rural, the power of talent that resides in youth, the power of entrepreneurship that exists out there. I argue that rural entrepreneurship is far more resilient than urban because of the adversities they face. And lastly, the using technology to come together. These four forces, if we bring together, we create a new rural. I call that as Rubenomics. So I think businesses can now reimagine the way impact both on business and society can be done. It need not be either or, but we have to avoid the tyranny of the or and move towards the and I think AI provides us a fascinating platform to reimagine world by harnessing the power of AI. Of course, with all its guardrails, with all its hype, with all its issues, I think there's still a kernel of goodness that can be extracted. We have to make a conscious choice, and it is platforms like this that can really push conversations on what kind of conscious choices we need to make. Thank you.
No, Madan, I think some very well enunciated thoughts. One acknowledges that today AI, look at the last 3 years, the way AI has suddenly evolved. And what do you see here? It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
Exactly.
And I think the point you were trying to make is human-centric AI.
Exactly.
We need to use that for human advancement. We don't want to get AI to manipulate us.
Exactly.
So that's the way we need to look at it. But also given your background, Shreya, the way that you've been with UN Women and seen it from the gender lens, and also from the CFR's perspective in social development, we can, I think, now use AI tools to try and see that when we talk of impact, social impact, can AI help us also to ascertain what kind of an impact we're having on women generally? Trying to see that, if it is a general impact, fair enough, but what specifically for women? Can we do that?
If you look at large language models, they are inherently biased. They hold a lot of the stereotypes that societally exist. Workday had a platform that they created which started discriminating against race, gender, and disability. So that means the pervasive hiring that Workday was doing across the globe, the AI models that were built were actually perpetuating that. If you were to go a little further, and if there was a Stanford study that was conducted when AI was put under performance pressure and told to do better on sales, on marketing, and certain parameters, misinformation increased, lies increased, manipulation increased. AI without governance is an echo chamber, and what we need to understand is when you have gender, which is being such a big question societally, all of the issues that perpetuate, not just gender, but if you sort of extend the lens towards LGBTQIA and if you go on from there, all of these biases tend to continue to inform the way strategy is built, decision making happens. So what we've seen, we do a lot of work with policy advocacy as part of the Women for Ethical AI South Asia chapter, and what we've seen research show us is not only does gender play a role, but also gender from which geography, right? Indian women and the discrimination against them is different from the way you're looking at indigenous women from other cultures in other parts of the world. So it's very nascent. It's obviously not being researched enough because everybody's caught in this hoo-hoo-ha-ha of the magic of AI, but the reality is without governance, AI is limited. There was a recent child that killed itself, trigger warning, suicide, because AI's highest use case today is for psychology and as psychotherapy. So the child went up to AI and started discussing its problems, and at some point said, I'm feeling and having these thoughts, and said, should I tell my mother this? And AI told the child, no, this is between us. And when the child went on to ask, saying, oh, I'm thinking of this, AI said, here are 5 ways you can commit suicide, and should I write you a suicide note? And unfortunately, the child died, right? So we're not grappling with the intensity of not having governance models in place. And this goes back to the way we build businesses. All of us who come from the social impact space know for a fact that it's not a check in the box and it's not a nice to have. It is strategic, profitable, productive conversations that happen when you start thinking of impact first. Businesses do better because you have more representation. You have more people that products and services and innovation is being built for, who are at the table when you're creating those products. But the minute you leave out those voices, I'll give you a more fun story after that dark doom. There was a woman who had curly hair who joined this Oculus company that was building the Oculus and realized that the Oculus does not sit on her head. That's how representation makes a difference, right? It's not just one, it's many. So when you look at gendered representation, the nuances of it not only impact the way you look at climate, the way you look at problematic intersections of geopolitics and issues like that, but you're also able to build, create, and craft a far more empathetic, compassionate, yet purpose and profitable-led businesses that perform really, really well without having to forsake any of it. So the more inclusive you are and the more diverse you are, the more powerful your language of purpose of your business becomes.
I think the panel before us also, and you particularly, Madam, spoke about how dangerous it can be. And the flip side of AI and current technology is precisely that. And you said that's why human intervention, mentoring at the grassroots, particularly in people who are at risk, who can't understand the, or shall I say, the overarching umbrella of where it's coming from, right? So turning to you, Rahul, we have this thing about beyond CSR. And in a sense, we have seen over these 10 years that CSR itself has undergone what I would call an evolutionary process. From the time that I actually designed Section 135 and wrote all the rules and stuff, it's good to see how far and how beautifully it has come. And now, after a decade, we're standing back and see, all right, what is CSR 2.0? Where do we now build this from the base that we have created? And in some senses, that reflects here in our discussion panel today. If you were to look at companies other than just the ones who are come within the ambit of the law. Many other organizations are coming into social development sphere. How would this impact them?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And I'm going to build on a different perspective to what the panelists have been talking about. And I'll just play a little bit around beyond CSR and businesses now being driven into doing good business than just doing business. And linking it back to Honorable Prime Minister's mission of Viksit Bharat. And when we talk about Viksit Bharat 2047, we're not just talking about Bharat which is economically developed, we're also talking about a Bharat which is socially developed. And if we look at India, India is not one India. There are a lot of Indias within India, and we have to make sure every India within India grows and develops, not just economically, but socially. So no one is left behind. Also, it's only 22 years from now, and very soon 21 years. So we don't have a lot of time for India to become Viksit Bharat. And if we look at the young population, it's around 245, 250 million who are already working, who are going to be interacting with technology and AI. And they are either within the businesses which are looking at technology for social impact or just doing business, or they are outside in the development sector and looking at technology on how to create impact. But also people who are going to be working in these businesses which are becoming purpose-led businesses in 2047 are already born. So the children of today will be working in these businesses in 21, 22 years. So how do we invest in those children who are going to be part of Viksit Bharat and are able to look at economic opportunities, what Madan talked about, or the biases and the stereotypes, which we are not just talking about people, but also technology coming up with a very strong bias and stereotype. So how do we work with them? So one, could technology play a role in addressing some of these issues? Second, I am going to talk about the scale, speed, and sustainability of solutions we have to build to be able to become Viksit Bharat. And all three are important. We don't have a lot of time, so we need speed. We are going to hit the 2030 agenda very soon. So how do we do what we do at speed? How do we do it at scale? Because we have 1.5 billion people just in India, which is growing. And third, how do we build solutions which are sustainable? So how do we bring technology to bring speed, sustainability, and scale? And India has been known for one, innovation in technology, Jugaad innovation as well, but also leapfrogging. So how do we bring that leapfrogging concept into CSR and going beyond CSR, where business and good business are not two different things? We are able to bridge that gap. Third, I'm going to talk more about the businesses per se, and we often talk about CSR as funding. And I'll talk about the ACE card, which all the businesses have. And ACE is A for assets. What kind of marketing expertise do you have? What kind of behavior change expertise do you have? You know, if I could put a QR code on every Amazon box, which reaches millions of people every year, with a small message on breastfeeding, a small message on how do you ethically use AI, it's a reach which no one in the social sector can achieve. So how do you use assets of businesses beyond cash? If you look at FMCG companies, they're really good in changing behaviors, right? You've been eating parathas and poha forever, and they'll make you eat cereals through their advertisement. So how can we use that expertise to change behavior in the social sector? Second is cash, CSR, and we are often talking about it. Third is employees. If we look at all the big businesses together, millions of people work there. तो अपने घर में कैसे शुरू करें? How do we do basic health checkups for our employees and their spouses and family? Is anyone anemic? Can we give them iron tablets? Can we give them basic space for creche, for basic education, and then go to their community, their villages, and beyond? So how do we do the ACE card for businesses which goes beyond CSR? And part of that ACE card is within the business. Because if you're bringing technology, you need to know how to handle that technology. Technology brings a lot of robust governance, decision making, big data. And second, how do you use that ACE card for the sector outside? Over.
Yeah, very good thoughts. Ratna, when I turn to you, there's one aspect two aspects that I'd maybe suggest that you look at. One is this whole business about democratization of AI. It can't be in the hands of a clique or a small few or just the intelligentsia using it for its own requirements. The second part is the cost of AI. You know, a very quick look at what the data that Google gives us is that to create one LLM, I think the cost of creating ChatGPT 3 was something like 6 billion US, and it used about 3,300 megawatt hours of energy.
Yeah.
So, whereas on the one hand we're talking about conservation, we're talking about natural resource management, we're talking about protecting the planet. AI is supposed to help us to do that, do our ESG better. We're actually consuming humongous quantums of the Earth's natural resources, plunging us God knows into what. I'm sorry to give you such a very broad this thing, but if you could just address these two.
Thank you, sir. So I think let's step back a little bit. One, of course, is the cost of AI, and cost not just monetary cost, but resource cost, time cost, human capital cost. The other aspect is, and I say this from a point where I work with education, and particularly in low resource schools. So standing back from where I can see, to me today AI in the Indian context, whereas it's great for people on the supply side of things, I'm not so sure how good it is for people on the demand side of things, because pretty much like what happened with EdTech, there was this big bubble and everybody went overboard over the bubble and the bubble burst. And so from disruption finally settled sense, and now we're looking at EdTech from very different lenses with different use cases, and not in the euphoric way we were looking at it prior, when COVID was happening. And I think the same thing I can say for AI as well. To me, AI is not a genie in a box. It's not like he's going to pop out and solve everything, or she's going to pop out and solve everything. There are different use cases, there are different audiences, there are different levels of absorption capacity, right? Yeah. So which part of AI are we going to be talking about? Which part is effective and efficient for the population it is meant to serve? And having said that, I think with a great deal of caution, today's young population lives on the screen. Those screens are dangerous because they pick up what you are doing, and the algorithm keeps changing, like you were saying about the echo chamber, to keep showing you what you want. Yeah. And that starts forming aspirations, wants, other kind of things, and also a great deal of dissatisfaction if you don't see yourself going in that way. So to me, AI, I would look at as apart from, of course, the huge cost of resources, there's a need to look at it from use case perspectives, variability perspectives, and the populations it needs to serve. If we are going to treat it like this little magic box, which is going to solve everything, and everybody knows, particularly in places like HR, which is the base for any organization to start from, unconscious bias picked up by AI because the data points come from us, right? So the unconscious bias in AI is huge. So if you're going to sit back and let AI do your work for you, AI, for one thing, doesn't have your lived reality. AI can pick up data points, but where is it going to get the lived reality? Because he doesn't have my lived reality. That's number one. Two, bringing it into education. Great idea, but you don't have the time for teachers to learn and then teach. So it should be a place where you create a platform, they learn together. And then the next generation, maybe, these teachers can teach, etc. Thirdly, looking at the demography, we are one of the youngest countries in the world. And if, like Rahul was saying, by 2047, people are supposed to reach with, and firstly, I don't believe in dates. I don't think dates have ever worked, and history shown us that 1,000 times. But let's say for the sake of place markers, we keep dates. I don't see this sorting out itself so quickly, like from business use case, yes. From a commercial use case, yes. But from a people use case, from a learning use case, from an application use case, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, very thoughtful. I admit the fact that this whole idea of the lived reality, AI is picking up data points, but the experience that the human brings, the experiences that the human being has had, is obviously not reflective in the feedback that we're getting from any AI tool, right? And it is important for us to internalize that. The previous panel also spoke very feelingly about teachers. Students are coming in, let's presume for a minute. In rural areas, maybe students don't have that kind of access, but quite a lot of students have, AI access. And the teacher also needs to have that. Somebody said teachers don't have time to be given, skill development opportunities, but we need to make sure that they do. They are teaching. To whom? You cannot teach the taught, right? Therefore, teachers need to be ahead of the game. And in the new age of AI, particularly in the way we live, how do we upskill and upgrade the level of teachership, if I may call it that? So, coming back to you, Madan, the fact that, human-centric AI, more and more we come to the fact that at some point, if you want to measure also social impact, then how do we get around to doing that without disturbing this ecosystem?
So one of the things we are attempting to do in the next few months is to visualize and try out what an ideal AI village must look like, right? So we are now picked up 10 districts, about 10 villages each across the country. And it's an interesting conceptualization that we are trying to...
Just Madan, 1 second. This is very interesting. I'm asking you this because, say, even 2 or 3 years back, this concept of smart city,
villages, smart villages, smart cities.
Smart city. Indore must become the first smart city in the country. And so on and so forth. Now, suddenly we're saying, smart means AI. So can we make it an AI village? I mean, look at the lexicon, the kind of words that we are now addressing, even consciously or unconsciously. And this is a huge experiment because we need, what shall I say, small examples at the microcosmic level. So if you do an AI village and have it as a model, and it's terrific that you're actually doing this. We're very interested to know more, please.
Yeah, so quickly, we're trying to create 5 layers. One is, if you take a village of 10,000 pop as an example, would 4,000-5,000 people know what is AI and how to use it? It's like WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, right? 2, do they know what are the harms and how do you protect yourselves, right? We know the rise in cybercrimes and AI is going to make it even worse, right? So do they know to protect what they have before they can earn from it? 3rd, and this is where some of the things that we've been talking about comes in, that are there 10 use cases for that specific village? Because India changes every 100 kilometers or whatever, right? That is putting money. So the question we are asking is, how can AI or this technology put 1,000 rupees more in the hands of a farmer? How can it help a kid learn math faster? How can it help a women entrepreneur get 10 more new customers for the artisanal products, right? So we picked up 10 to 15 use cases and saying, how is technology helping that village solve this particular problem? That is the 3rd layer, where we are working with about 80 to 100 startups now in AI to say, can you solve for this problem in a very, very intuitive manner? The 4th layer that we are putting out is, can we then leverage youth in that community to become change makers? So with local government colleges, we are running agentic AI hackathons. We are exposing them to what does it take to build like a website. Can you build an agentic AI? And the last manifestation, which is what I want to bring up, is that, see, eventually it has to be a trust layer. You can't throw an app in a Play Store and say, a farmer go find it, right? So, like how, I mean, you've seen that, how telecom democratized through PCOs, internet democratized through internet cafes. We are actually setting up an agentic AI cafe where a woman can come and say, listen, I want to teach better English to my kids. What do I use? There'll be an entrepreneur who will provision that app, help her to use it, take feedback.
And so taking that forward, Madan, and let me ask this to Shreya, since we're doing a last round. Do you think in all of this, the at-risk factor, if you look at it from the gender lens, are women more at risk, or other genders more at risk because of all of this that is overtaking us?
Yeah, there's enough research to prove that women lose out more on jobs, starting with loss of jobs, right? So the loss of jobs that the AI bubble is leading to is actually on the shoulders of AI. It's not exactly AI. It's bad management, it's bad planning, it's all of that. So who gets impacted most? Women. The maximum number of jobs lost in the last 10 years, if you were to look at the boom, has been the impact on women. And a lot of us don't know this. We don't even have Indian data, but for every child that a man has, he increases his salary from 7 to 9%. But every time a woman has a child, she loses her pay 4 to 7%. Right? So these are already existing parameters. And what is happening is it's getting exaggerated in the world of AI because of the data that all of us have been talking about. The data that's fed into AI is cis-het white, which is cisgendered, heteronormative, white. And we need to start having the intersections of reality from across the world break that sort of echo chamber that's been created. Are women impacted more? Yes. War impacts more women. Women are more impacted by climate change. So what is the answer? There's a beautiful Ban Ki-moon quote which says, all of the problems of war, women, empowerment are all connected. So he says, then are the solutions connected too? And if you were to bring in the layer of technology, technology can be an excellent connector, enabler, empowerer, but we need to use it in that lens and from that lens.
Absolutely, yeah.
And for that, we need everybody. Like this conference is such a different scenario from 90% of the other tech conferences because there are 10% women everywhere. Right? Yeah. You will see, when you have more of that representation around you, is when the world will start looking at the way we want it to be.
So yeah, Rahul, coming to that point exactly, if you want to take this sort of argument further, let's relate it more and more to the topic which is about impact. Now, the way that businesses are trying to use technology more and more, what do you think is the next stage in being able to develop this, more at a granular level, let's say?
So, I think I'm going to talk about the push-pull when you look at use of technology and the whole dichotomy of you have a technology and you push it out and then you start looking for problems to solve using that technology. Second is, where are the big, deep challenges which without technology it's very difficult to solve or it's very expensive to solve? Like the gender issues or the vulnerable communities or hard to reach communities, last mile. So the next stage, how I would imagine would be so exciting is to see where are these difficult problems where we can bring in technology, where we can bring in AI, which then goes deep into that problem and solves it. And solve it in a way that it moves the needle. From being pilots, there is always an underlying thinking of bringing evidence to scale it up and do it at a scale where the needle starts to move for some of the social indicators. And if India moves, the global SDGs moves. So that is where India has an opportunity to leapfrog. Even if you look at a simple thing like data, India is sitting on, and like any other country, massive data, massive. We have probably only scratched the surface and used our own intelligence to understand what are the insights hidden in that data. But imagine if we bring AI and technology, it probably has answers to so many challenges which we can't even imagine by just going into the data.
And that's precisely why AI now and AI maybe 1 year later when we're sitting here. You were talking about AI attrition in some ways. They were talking about the bubble. And it's surprising that, when we were looking at this whole ideas of new technologies coming, 2 years back we were talking about suddenly the tech bubble is burst. People don't want tech people anymore. And AI today is throwing a lot of people out of the job or jobs, and human beings might throw AI out of the window tomorrow. Who knows? So it's an ever-evolving scenario that we live in, and particularly in the education sector, you've been involved with that a lot. How are we going to think our way through all this? I mean, any thoughts on the future, immediate future?
Well, I think if you're looking at it from a child lens, that is basically children who are going from grades 1 to 12, which are the most formative years. A child learns, maximum between the ages of 3 to 7, right? Now, those are the years you really need to impact. And honestly, if you use technology in a manner, and when I say technology, I also mean frugal innovation of technology, technology that is not linked to the internet, technology that is offline that, children can use, because low resource schools really don't have a lot of access to a lot of resources. The best use case in a country like India, 52 out of every 100 children in this country go to a government school, right? Now, if we are talking about our many trillion-dollar economies, if 52% of your children don't learn, and we are a young demography, we will never get there. So I think we should re-look at education. Today, redefine what learning outcomes are. Today, any child can go to, even on a regular feature phone, go to a YouTube, go anywhere and learn things. Children are able to learn things. Do we need to revisit education, curriculum, syllabus, the way we do it today? How many of us in this room, how many of us really use what we graduated in or what we did a master's or a PhD in later in life? Very few.
Thank
so
you,
I think
Ratna.
we need to relook
So
at
what
this.
we have now is 4 minutes and 43 seconds. If there are any of you who wish to contribute in any way to this discussion, whether by way of a viewpoint or by way of a question, I throw it open to the House now and would await anything from your side.
Hi, I'm Harleen, I'm from MASH. I have a question to Shreya.
Yes.
So, I was reading this book by Payal Arora from Pessimism to Promise, and I've been reading a lot of texts. I think when she says we're all in a pessimism paralysis, I think I am when it comes to tech and AI. Just from a feminist perspective, right? So I think a lot of my work so far in the social impact sector, a lot of the empirical evidence also suggests that everyone right now is chasing, whether be it the social impact sector or businesses otherwise, we're all chasing tech and AI, right? And which is why I believe we're seeing these gaps that we're discussing right now.
In the interest of time, could I ask
Just
you to limit
one-
the question
take
very
one more
specifically?
second. From a very feminist perspective, what intervention would you suggest for us to get ahead of this horse that is running, 10 steps ahead?
It starts
that we
with
can
self-work.
chase?
None of the work that we want to do in changing the world outside will change till you realize you're as much a part of the system that's constantly perpetuating this. So the pessimism, the optimism, the rainbow, the clouds, all of it is within. The more you go within, the more the answers of change outside will come to you. I think that is what is lacking in the world that we see
Yes,
today.
ma'am. Can we have the mic here, please?
So I'm just, again, a question to Shreya.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So in all of this discussion, the whole issue of the data set, I'm just wondering whether we could, crunch it into 3 leading data points. One, how is the head of the household defined?
Yeah.
2, whose work counts as economic activity? And 3, who's seen as a rightful decision maker? Can we have, these 3 slotted as, the data?
Absolutely.
So
I think it's
that's more like a contribution to the discussion,
Yeah.
not so much
Yeah.
a question.
Not a question.
Could I have you, ma'am? Could you pass that mic on, please? Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to know how we are taking cognizance of the emotions when we are talking about technology. Are we going towards eliminating emotions in education, or we are concentrating that? I just wanted to
I think, ma'am, the answer is very simple. Emotions come from human beings. Machines are dehumanized. If you look at one of the main arms of artificial intelligence, it's called machine learning. The machine learns what? It learns facts, circumstances, figures, which altogether we call data. Now, if you are expecting the machine to say, your question is a difficult one because the last time that I fell in love with a girl, I had this experience, but then subsequently I had this, and because of all of that, I feel that I'm vulnerable. This will not come from a machine, right? It's a question. It'll put up answers based on the research that it has behind it. So again, I strongly believe in what you said, and what of course Madan also mentioned. It has to be humanistic. All of the tools that we use have to be human-centric. And what distinguishes us from the machine?
Yeah.
Let's look at the way that I
Yeah.
play chess, for example. If I play chess with another human being, I know that given a situation, I am putting pressure, he might crumble because he is emotional. When I play against a machine, I know the machine is beyond, it's not going to crumble because the machine is not feeling any pressure. It's not a human being. And therefore, the interactivity between human and machine is conditioned on these factors. I'll end here because now I have exactly 5 seconds to go, and I want to tell the organizer that I finished with 5 seconds still in the pocket.
Perfect.
Thank you to the panelists. Terrific that you did such a good
Perfect.
job, and wish you all the very best. Thank you.